And we've come to a great divide in the place of our American history, because the question is now being asked for every radical, revolutionary, critical thinking voter is, whose country is it anyway? With a critical election just days away, the rabid fringe of the right wing have been chanting, "I want my country back." They want their country back really raises for us an alarm of a diagnostic approach to thought. You want your country back from where? And all the more you want your country back from whom? My dear friend and co-worker in the struggle, Dwayne Wickham of USA Today, wrote just on last Friday that the Tea Party is acting like slaves have taken over the plantation. That somehow or another America is not what it's supposed to be, because there is somebody who doesn't look like them at the helm of presidency. President Obama observed, if it was an issue over the policies that got us into this mess, over against the policies that are taking us out of the mess, the election would be no question. But because it is not about the recession, it is not about health care, it's not about bringing our troops home, it's not about affordable housing, it is not about achievable and affordable education, but the main issue is, how can we get rid of the president? Ladies and gentlemen, may I suggest to you, please don't get caught up in the fringes. Much of the argument and much of the stress that you're dealing with is not about your stance, your philosophy, or even your religion. At the very focus of the enemy's angst against you is he simply wants to get rid of you. He simply wants to get you out of power, wants to get you out of your position, and he wants to make you lose why you were appointed in this hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the Tea Party has become compromised over its caffeine of colored consciousness. They have in fact become hyperactive simply because they do not know how after 200 years the rest of power has now been transferred to the people who they thought would remain 3/5 of a human being. It is very important, ladies and gentlemen, that the Tea Party really is not standing on the Constitution, change, or excellence when it is that they have put a dizzy-headed brunette at the helm of their spokesperson when they realize that they are just throwing rocks and hiding their hands. The savvy, diabolical plot of the Tea Party is of such because they have not declared themselves as a party. They can, in fact, receive donations from people who hide under the shroud of anonymity. If in fact it is about principle, why would you want to hide who it is that you are? But because you do not want to be seen, but you want to hide under what we remember as white sheets, because you now want to torch those who really stand for democracy and leave a cross on their lawn, hiding under the religious right. This is nothing more than a postmodern Ku Klux Klan. But because we have in fact lost our vigor, our zeal, and our tenacity, we have gone further back than where we were in 1956, because we are what Malcolm X called the new Negroes, who think that they have arrived because they now are wearing designer clothes, have a bag, and live in suburbia. They've forgotten that until all of us are free, none of us are free. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not understand how we converge into this little cul-de-sac known as Primrose, and we delude ourselves into believing that the struggle is now over. The struggle is not over, because if you don't in fact wake up the sleeping giant, in about 18 months, Baltimore is going to have a white mayor. I know y'all don't want to hear me. If in fact you do not wake up, Delaware is going to have a senator who has absolutely no sense, no sensibility, and has has no consciousness. If we do not wake up, Las Vegas is going to have the greatest gamble of its life because black people hold the pendulum of what will happen in the rest of power for these United States of America. Here where we are, our success, ladies and gentlemen, is not having Obama in the White House. The success is after 2012, who will we make sure that he is back there until 2016? Our responsibility is not to just have one man in power, but we ought to be grooming a generation to come behind him to say that we are not going back to a place where we used to be. But because you still celebrating and still wearing your Obama t-shirt from '08, you forgot that we are still in a fight right now. And in this midterm election, the enemy has in fact lulled us into sleep because we're glad to have an asterisk in history. But what I want to ask you, if George W. Bush could have 2 terms when he was inefficient, ineffective, and illiterate, how can we not have a president who is conscious and thoughtful and socially minded to only have 1 term? Something is wrong. I might as well go here. When Pat Jessamy finds herself unemployed today, not because she couldn't do the job, but because we were asleep and watching Judge Judy and eating at Starbucks, we forgot that there was still a struggle that we've got to be a part of. I know you think you've arrived because your manager is black, your co-workers are black, the teller at your bank is black, your real estate agent is black, but real power, ladies and gentlemen, is not who's behind the cash register. Real power is who's making the deposit. And at this point in our lives, we got to rise to another level that we do not want symbolized power, but we want actual power. And I know that's hard for you to digest in church, because in church we got a lot of symbols of power with no actualized power. Because you shout, that don't mean you have power. Because you sing, it don't mean you got power. Because you lift up hands, that don't mean you got power. But ladies and gentlemen, when you can cast out demons, step on serpents, speak of those things that are not as though they already are, that's when you got power. When you can talk to folk who don't even like you, when you can bless people that wanted you to fail, when you can keep your head up when Negroes tried to knock you down, that's power. We're in a critical place in this midterm, and the elections are just a stone throw away. And God would have me announce to you today that this is the middle of your term. Hear me, you are halfway to where you getting ready to be. And don't you know that's when the enemy attacks you the most, is when you halfway there? Y'all act like you don't remember Nehemiah. He was building a great wall. But when the wall was halfway complete, that's when they showed up and said, come down. And Nehemiah said, I can't come down. I'm doing a great work. Let me pause, because I'm not preaching to you. I'm talking to the person beside you. Whenever the enemy attacks you, take it as a confirmation, I'm halfway there. I know some of y'all haven't been going through anything, but if these have been some rough, trying, and turbulent times for you, and there's been stuff in your life that almost wanted you to quit, resign, surrender, and throw in the towel, you ought to be giving God the glory. I'm halfway there. Whether or not, ladies and gentlemen, you vote in this midterm election is in fact a striking aim as where power is getting ready to be. Ladies and gentlemen, all of America is waiting for the black and the brown vote to rise up and in fact give an indication that the Constitution has got to be equitable for every person who lives under the flag. What you do in the next 10 days, ladies and gentlemen, will in fact make the record clear that the election of Obama was not a fluke. It was not an accident, and it was not emotional grandstanding. We were not just voting for Obama because his skin and melanin was like ours. We were voting because here was a man with clean hands and a pure heart who was sincere about change. I know some of you like the symbolism of things, but God is looking to see what you do next will reflect the next 2 years of your life. I better pause right here because I think you missed it. I said what you do next is a barometer and a reflection of what your life is going to look like for the next 2 years. I done gone too fast. Let me back up again. I said what you do next will affect your child, will affect your economy, it will affect your housing. This is the slow class. Let me give it to you one last time. What you do next will set the pace of how far your enemies got to get away from you in the next 2 years. Now, those of you who don't care about the rest of your life, those of you who just gonna roll over and play dead, please don't do nothing. But those of you who need to vote, God, do something for my future. I need you to give God a praise that will cover you for the next 2 years.